Ah, it's me. Yeah, another video. This is my take 5 or 6 videos actually. The Brett Keane is asking me some questions, and I figured I would answer them. I played a little bit of this. They seem reasonably philosophical, yes, pointed, and some sort of, well, then there must be a God kind of thing or something, but I think that's worth doing. And there's some other things I want to do too. I got Trick left a comment. Anyway, but it's on a subject, you know, the is-ought gap, which is one of my favorite, I goddamn hate that nonsense kind of subjects. So anyway, some videos are coming. Sorry. Or, hey, yay! Yeah, something to do while you're sitting on the toilet or whatever. So what I'll do is I will show Brett sitting up, which is, you know, just for me. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate it. You look a little... Okay, got a stick up your ass, though, so maybe you need a more relaxed camera angle or something. But anyway, it doesn't, you know, I ain't gonna pick. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, you know, yeah, I do appreciate the extra little bit of respect, except the middle part where you know, barf up some air. Yeah, I can live without that. That's another one of those discourtesy thing, like eating in the video, you know, when you're belching in people's faces. It just is a little bit rude, but it's just me. Anyway, so yeah, I'll show him reading the first few questions, and then I'll just put the camera down just so it doesn't do the bouncy thing. Just, oh, that just bothers some people way too much. Anyway.
I'm sitting up just for you, amendham.
Cool.
It's such a big deal of me laying on my fucking belly on a bed.
It's not a big deal, Brett, really. It doesn't even really bother me. I'm just saying that if you really want to do this reclamate your YouTube personality thing, it's probably not the best place to do it from, is the, you know, bottom. You kind of got to put a little more effort into it. That's all I'm saying. I'm just giving you some cheap, shitty advice. That's all. It's just whatever. You don't have to. It's not an order. I wasn't, you know, no, I'm not forcing. Just a suggestion.
Such a big deal. Oh. So Gary, I've got some questions for you, and I think this might cause you a little bit of mental stimulation, which is a lot better than what you have been dealing with.
Appreciate it. I mean, really, realistically, yes, this is kind of more, yes, this is better than drama. Very good. Excellent. Fantastic.
Normally, you don't seem like the type of guy that likes to babble on about fucking drama. You like to talk about philosophy and deep pondering shit of the...
I don't really like it, but I mean, I think it's just necessary. That's right. I think the planet Earth, the human beings are doing a lousy job of, you know, running the planet, so to speak, and the only way it's going to get fixed is people got to talk about fixing it.
Universe. So, let's get to it. Let's not waste your time anymore, Gary, alright?
Excellent. But yeah, you almost go too fast. This is fast. Yeah.
Get to it. Can you name one thing that is designed without logic?
Gee, tricky question, right? Alright, so this is just semantics, you know, wordplay. So logic is mixing concepts. Okay, you have a pen, screwdriver, you find the connections between them, the properties that are similar, blah, 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 blah. And that's sort of the nature of logic. Logic can be seen most obviously in mathematics. You find out the relationship between 2-ness and then 3-ness, and you come up with 5-ness, you know, that kind of thing. And that's the nature of logic. So to say that there could be anything in the universe that was outside the realm of obedience to some form of logic, that is, the relationships are real, the moon has an obligation to obey the rules of logic, so to speak, which would be the laws of physics. That's the logic of its potentialities, its function. But it's to talk about something other than idea concepts, things conceptualized. To use the word logic to describe the actual thing and not the concept is sort of not using the word appropriately.
And purpose.
Purpose is another tricky, another word. You got to be kind of careful when you're using the word purpose, because you have the associated word, the connected word of function. and function versus intention. And then purpose would be like a mixture of function and intention. So I'm just saying is there a use to a word that is a mixture of two words where there's no rules about how much is mixed in? You know, how much sugar, how much flour? It's a whole different thing depending on, you know, it's a cookie or bread, depending on what the ratio is.
Can something be designed without purpose?
Design is another special word, right? Design is implicit and almost by definition would require intention, which requires some sort of program or processing. So purpose would be more having to do with not just the function end, but the intention or deliberate end. So again, obviously most of the universe is not purposeful in the sense it was not thoughtfully created. It was not pre-designed and then, you know, on a piece of paper a model wasn't drawn, the model was tested, and then the thing was built. It's a work in process.
And what is the purpose of your mind, Gary?
So again, it doesn't have a purpose, but that would be a god. The function in evolution is obvious. It provides me with all this sense data. It allows, it's like radar on a ship. It's that obvious. Okay, it's like having a GPS on the ship. It's just data acquisition for the exploitation of the environment. It makes me a lot better at not walking into trees.
Can you be rational and logical without a mind?
Yes. You have a calculator that works, a calculator that doesn't work. You could argue the one that does good math is logical, rational. It's got appropriate associations between 2 and 3 and 5 and 10. It understands those relationships in the sense that it has them accurately diagrammed. The calculator doesn't work, yeah, it doesn't have them accurately diagrammed, so it's lacking logic. It isn't obeying the rules of mathematics, which would be, in the context of the conversation, the laws of its nature. And so yes, it's not being logical or rational. But mind is a tricky word. Elaborate thinking device or something you're going to say, or something. I'm just saying you have to understand that language is old and archaic, and it still has gremlins in it. It still has a lot of bullshit words, and you have to be a little careful in how you use those words. And I think you can understand that. If I said, "Oh, Brett, I love you," you wouldn't know what that meant, right? You wouldn't know that. You wouldn't know what kind of love that was. I love you because you're fun to laugh at. You know what I'm saying. It could be almost any kind of love, and the love can be very, very, very good for Brett or very bad for Brett.
Is a mind required for language and logic and rationality?
All right, well, language, logic, and rationality. So again, language is just a way of identifying concepts. And as I just pointed out, language can be kind of flawed. It can be illogical. We can have words that are logically shit. And there's a lot of them in our vocabulary: spontaneous, random, purpose, lots of words that are just messy and sloppy and don't say anything explicitly. They have too much of battery and pen in the same word, and it doesn't really tell you how much battery or how much pen is in the word, so it's not a very good word. So again, in the utility of language it's the programming language. It's the language that allows the representation, symbolic representations, and the categories and the properties to be understood and defined as elements that have a specific and explicit definition. So it's really the definition. Definitions are a way of saying this weighs twice as much as this. It's defining relative context. By understanding one thing, you can understand another thing. By definition.
Is the universe rational and logical?
the universe has to obey rules. So you could argue that in that sense, it's rational. I mean, it has a 2 plus 2 equals 4-ness built into the physics. So I would argue the physics is rational, logical, in the sense that it can't disobey the fundamental rules. Rational and logical based on an intellectual understanding of function and the more complex word of intent or utility or productive. No, it doesn't have any obligation to obey those rules. So the simple rules it's logically coherent to. The complex rules of understanding winning versus losing, understanding calculator that adds correctly versus calculator that adds incorrectly, yeah, then it breaks down. So I guess I would say it on the lowest order it's rational. As you go higher order of complexity, it gets less and less rational in the sense that the universe doesn't understand, so it makes what would be logical mistakes in the sense that it doesn't value correctly.
According to Stephen Hawking and Richard Dawkins and John Lennox, the mathematician, it is.
Well, again, it's a word, okay? So I'm just saying, unless we define what logical and rational means, we can't use the word in these sentences and say what they're saying is the same as what you're saying, because I think your definition is different than their definition. I think their definition would be the same qualified definition that I just gave you, that on a level they're logical and rational because they're obeying rules, but on another level where the rules are a more sophisticated set of rules are understood, like we can understand not to hit our foot with a hammer because it'll cause us pain and blah blah blah, and we can understand something a little more complicated than just the material hammer hitting something, which is not relevant in a world where things don't feel pain, for example. Ooh, didn't play. Shit. It's broken. Oh, son of a bitch, what's wrong? It's not spinning. Let's see, computer.
Do you believe that the universe has some kind of pattern and consistency to it?
Obviously. There's huge consistency in the physics. So the universe has that. We can look into the universe no matter how far we look. We don't see, I don't know, singing baked potatoes. We don't see, we see suns burning, we see gravitational influences, we see swirling galaxies. It all has a certain consistency. Things take certain shapes and forms, and they're limited to those certain shapes and forms, and there's just nothing, it just doesn't, Porky Pig doesn't fly out of the universe and go, that's all folks. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen. So yes, it's obeying very narrow and strict rules of its potential function in the big universe. Obviously on the surface of planets a little bit funky chemistry can take place, and that can get a lot more complicated.
Do you believe that the universe is mathematically coherent, Gary?
I believe in conservation of energy, if you're asking me that, yes. So yes, something has to go in for something to go out. Cause makes effects. Yes, I believe in cause and effect, if that's another way of saying, if that's another way of asking your question. Yes, I believe in cause and effect. Oh, damn, it didn't go again. I wonder what is the problem. Come on, computer, you can do better than this. I do have a few windows open and such, but it really should be working better than this.
Do you believe that because of its rationality and logic, this is the reason why we're able to make deductions and do math and science based upon it? Or
it's a compound question. Why we're able to model reality, which we're able to do. So that's what we could call what we're doing in terms of intelligence and perception. We're taking sense data, creating an internal model of reality. I mean, we don't really consciously live in reality. We consciously live in a synthetic model created inside of our brain. And the function wouldn't really it wouldn't work very well if our brain didn't do that very well, because then we would walk into trees. So obviously our brain creates a pretty good model of reality inside our heads. See, I don't really have the camera in my brain, or the video screen, or anything in this room isn't really in my brain. Just a representation of it. And it's a representation where I understand the difference between something made out of wood and something made out of steel, and that's all the knowledge bits. So I think that's enough of an answer to the first part of the question. Oh, damn it. I just don't know what this delay is. Maybe my internet connection is shit or something. Let's try, oh, it's not the firewall.
Is it just a chaotic fucking soup?
Chaos is one of those words that probably shouldn't exist, okay? There's no such thing as spontaneous or random, and chaos is just not really a useful word. Chaos is always the byproduct of those rudimentary forces, and they're rigid. So there's no escaping cause and effect. Now the fact that we live in a universe that is incredibly thick, dense, zillions upon zillions, I mean just on the tip of my finger it's a number so big, the number of quanta or little bits of energy right there is so big there would be no point in me 10 to the whatever 698 or something zeros. Huge number. So we live in an illusion of simplicity, in the sense that we can call things pen, but it's a lot more than that in terms of the little bits to what they're doing. So it's the density argument. So yeah, it's simple in the mechanism, but there is no real chaos. It's only that just the bulk of it makes it seem like chaos. Is there some other necessary word to make? I mean, to say something like, yeah, it's so compounded. Like I can make 4 different noises at once. I could stamp my feet and clap my hands and talk. So I could create what seems like chaos. But you could certainly break the chaos into the elements and separate them, and then you don't have chaos, right? So the chaos is just a perceptual problem. We can't keep track of, this and me talking and me stamping my, we can't keep track of all that. Too much information.
All right. Can arrangements, processes, and patterns be comprehended and assembled without a mind?
Assembled without a mind. Again, see, mind is another, not a really explicit word, right? You have to concede. Brain is pretty explicit, okay? So we said brain, and then if we said what is a brain but a thinking and feeling device, and then we said, well, let's not talk about feelings, let's just talk about the thinking part. Then we're back to a word like logic and modeling, and so yeah, what I'm saying is you have to have something complicated enough to resolve. It has to have enough pixels, so to speak. So it has to be able to arrange knowledge. So it has to understand. It has to have a representation of this, and then it has to understand what blue is and what plastic is and what writing is to understand this. But you don't have to have a brain to put together a good conceptual description of this. And that description might be as big as the Bible, okay, in terms of the words required to accurately describe this. It could be a huge volume of information to describe this, and it couldn't even be held inside of a working brain. But the working brain could process that book and understand this. So, but understanding these are tricky words, because we can understand understanding through and understanding things that yes, I know the concept of this. I know what to call this. Yes, and I can detail some of the superficiality about it. And I have a pretty, I could probably give you a lot of information about what the ink is made out of, what the molecules look like. I can give you a drawing. I can provide a lot of information about what this is. But I don't need to. Okay, so but I'm just saying using the word mind isn't grown up language. It's kind of a baby talk kind of word, like love and some of these other words. It's a word better off not in the vocabulary. Mind has no real use. It's not a defined word. It has no real meaning. So you have to think in terms of thinking device, neural network, data processor. You have to use more mechanical descriptions that are accurate. Mind isn't a description of anything explicit or even materially rational. It's conceptually babble. I mean, to separate from brain or CPU or memory chip. You just can't separate it from those concepts, those physical realities. Dang this computer. I don't know what this is. I mean, it's a new problem. I just don't know exactly. I guess it's just, there's too many windows open, some other kind of bullshit. So, sorry. I mean, it's saying play and it's not doing it. So, it's just kind of irritating. I'm sorry. It's probably my fault somehow. I'll take full responsibility. Maybe if I close the window. Oh, come on, baby. Do it.
Can chemicals reason?
Can chemicals reason? Obviously, chemicals can be arranged in a way that make them capable of doing all kinds of things. So yes, you can create like Ouija boards or Chinese slidey beads or something. So there's lots of ways chemicals can store information or even process information. So an arrangement of chemicals could have an identity and represent a thing because they're in a certain shape or configuration, and they'll interact in a certain reliable way with something else. So you could make a chemical that represents 2, and you can make another chemical that represents 3, and when you put them together you always end up with 5. So you can get chemicals to do math. So yes, but I don't think it's a useful question.
Are you a chemical?
Obviously I have a DNA molecule that is that all of this is merely the vessel, the tank for. So there's a little kernel of me that's a chemical, a collection of chemicals, all the same chemicals, a collection of a common chemical base, strands. And those strands are the blueprint of how to make one of these. And so that chemical, through the process of my function, through evolution, is being, right now as we speak, millions of them are put into little robot vessels that are intended to spread my code. So, what do you want me to tell you? Yes, chemistry is part of our reality. We're chemical machines, developed over a very long period of time, and we sort of work in a way. We tell time pretty well, in a sense. If I was to use telling time as a metaphor for having sophisticated function. We have sophisticated function, but we are just chemicals.
I believe that you're nothing more than a collection of chemicals. Is there anything...
Yes, we're first, you can break it down. I mean, what I am is billions of cells. So I'm a colony organism, and some of the cells are a liver. They have speciality. Some are neurons, some are liver, some are kidney cells, all kinds of blood cells, all kinds of different kinds of cellular organisms are swimming around inside of me. Even little living creatures are living inside of me. Cellular, multicellular organisms are swirling about, and worms and things, all kinds of disgusting stuff. So yes, I'm a very complex colony organism, and it is the electricity in the neurons, 100 billion neurons, and a lot of interconnections between the neurons that are the conscious part. So yes, the brain part is the one doing this interesting thing, and the physical thing is just doing plant. Okay, it's a banana tree. I mean, it just doesn't. It's a mechanical machine, just like other biological mechanical machines that once you cut my head off, you could keep the body alive, and it would be called a vegetable. Because that's what it would sort of be.
The yarn, the chemicals, the water, the sewage, the shit, the crap that you stuff into your face. Is there more to Gary than that, or are you just nothing?
Well, I'm not much of a face stuffer, to tell you the truth, so that's your kind of thing. But anyway, obviously there's more. If all you're going to say is, am all I am the mechanical biological function, and obviously what I'm saying is, obviously I am conscious. My brain, the 100 billion neurons are doing something, and they're doing this awakeness thing, consciousness. So obviously that's more. But are you saying, is that made out of something special, like God cells, or gremlin cells, or angel cells, or no? It's made out of biological organic matter. That's what I'm made out of. Carbon and elements and things.
More than a complicated parasite.
Well, the fact that we're complicated is true. Whether or not a living thing could ever be anything other than a parasite is an open question. I could argue that everything has to parasite the universe for energy. It has to get it. And you could argue that, well, plants aren't parasites, but they are in a sense, because their roots go into the ground and pull nutrients in a competitive manner, and so I mean, how exactly you define parasitism? You're feeding off the dead flesh of something. I mean, is that parasitic? In a way, I would think it sort of is. I mean, whether you're feeding on them while they're alive or you're feeding on them after they're dead doesn't really matter. You're feeding on them. Their existence is, you're dependent on it. And clearly all the plants now are dependent on that. Now, maybe you go back 4 billion years and you can find some little organisms that were pretty self-sufficient and might not be parasites, might not be understood as being parasitic, beyond the fact that they stole the light and prevented it from hitting the earth, and use that light energy to do some chemistry. But yeah, it's kind of thing where we're consuming energy, and obviously it's a lot easier to get it if you just steal it than to actually manufacture it, or manufacture it from a source, get it from an original source. Getting energy from the sun is difficult. To get a lot of energy, you have to wait for enough sun to hit you, and it takes a while. Whereas if you just steal it from somebody who's already stored up 10,000 years worth of it, you drink a little bit of oil. I mean, one droplet of oil has thousands of years worth of solar energy in it. But yes, we're all parasites. Complex parasite. Yes, that's what we are.
Can something non-existent exist within your mind?
Yes, I mean, Bugs Bunny wearing Elmer Fudd's hat. So even if Bugs Bunny existed, Bugs Bunny wearing Elmer Fudd's hat does not exist anywhere but right there.
Is love rational and logical?
Well, see, again, it's a silly word, so I'm just saying it. Goo goo. Goo goo gaga. Blah 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 blah. See, I mean, I could say that to you, and you could say, well, I don't really feel like answering that question. I could have a question mark after that. Does it mean something to you? It doesn't mean anything to me, and saying the word love is silly. Do humans desire? Yes. Are humans attached to things? Are they possessive? Do they wish to, do men enjoy fantasizing about having a harem? Yes, they do. I mean, is that love? Is what exactly is love? But love of beauty, vanity, ego. I'm sorry. It's a silly word, love. Generally speaking, it's made out of either something kind of ugly like guilt or a sense of responsibility, which isn't much fun, or it's made out of horny and possessive, which, one of them has no brain and the other one is tacky and creepy. I'm just saying it's not a very good word. You want to pretend there's this flowery concept of love that isn't bigotry. Isn't that what most love is horrible bigotry? I love her because she's more beautiful than everybody else. Is that a good thing? Nah, that sucks.
Logical. Does it require a mind to be experienced and given?
Well, whatever this given part is, like I said, the fact that we can be empathetic and that we can be generous and that we can have a self-interest in being productive. I mean, if I jump on a grenade, it won't be out of love. It'll be out of respect. You see, and I think the good word to me is the word respect. You're respecting something's need. You're respecting something, the integrity of the truth of it. That kind of thing. You're honoring the truth of it. That's what kind of respect is a kind of honor. Where love is kind of a tacky thing. To do something for somebody for an unearned reason is sort of like saluting Donald Trump. He just hasn't earned it.
Can the universe be rationalized without a mind?
Can the universe be rationalized? Well, rationalized, see, that's where you get into the word rationalization. This whole idea of can you make arguments about the universe? Certainly. Its function and such. The elements inside of it, what its potentialities are. Certainly. But I can do the same thing with matches and gasoline. I can sort of point out that these two things, if you mix them the right way, you can get to the grocery store. If you mix them the wrong way, you blow your head off.
Can you be rationalized without a mind within the universe?
Can I be rationalized? Well, again, it's not so rationalized. By what you're saying is, can I be modeled and understood, and can I conceptually can I accurately conceptualize? See, that would be a better word. Conceptualize, not rationalize. Rational would be an argument about how the function of the model that we have of the universe works. So that would be a kind of a different thought process. Conceptualize is sort of like understand. Can I be understood? Can the universe be understood? Yes, I believe it can. And it doesn't require brains made out of matter. It just requires devices that can store the information and obviously acquire the information, which is a little more complicated. So it just ends up that the only things doing that in the universe are biological organisms, because these biological organisms are the only thing that have neurons and in turn brains. So yes, you need a brain probably to do it well.
Can morals be based upon nature or society?
Morals is another word that doesn't have any use. So those are like a dogmatic edict. No, that has no use. Can we understand value? Okay, that would be ethics. Yes, we can understand value. We can understand what's good and what's evil, good or bad. But good and evil sounds good. And we can understand that personally because we sense it. We actually feel good and evil. We feel good and bad, so we know what good and bad are. And once you have knowledge of it, you have knowledge of good and evil, like in the Bible, by eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, you gain information about just how dangerous life is and how horrible it can be and what the consequences can be, and all of that is burdensome. It's burdensome to be knowledgeable. That was sort of God's argument, that you're taking on the burden of a God, because now you're going to have to account for your behavior and the consequences, and you're going to have to endure a sense of responsibility and a sense of guilt and a sense of duty. All of that's now going to be your obligation, and you're going to have to do all this value math. You're going to have to measure your interest against somebody else's interest, and life is going to get burdensome. I think that's enough of an answer.
Or do you believe that you have an external source? Or does it all simply come from nature? And where does nature actually develop or lay down any kind of morals at all?
Well, again, it's not nature's job. Nature's in the replicating DNA molecule game. There is no real nature as a mechanism. Okay, there's processes, and we know what the chemical processes are that can lead to complex compounds. And then once you have a compound that replicates, now there's a new law about how the replication, what the causes and effects will be of the molecules ending up in a competition with each other. And the fact is, if you create this competition, you create mutations, then you'll end up with a changing life forms that adapt to each other and strategize and are in an endless Batman-Superman war where they can keep morphing their superpowers to each other to make themselves more and more capable of anticipating the other guy's moves and all of that kind of stuff. So it becomes this competitive thing, and we end up with a bunch of very sophisticated and powerful tools, good eyesight, good hearing, tactile stuff. We're doing this language thing, which is incredibly powerful, where we can share information. We can write down volumes of information about things and store them outside of our brain to increase the power of our brain. Very powerful tools. Alright, so your question was morality. And yes, morality is something in the world. The value exists in the world. If there's a rabbit in a jar in space, a little feeling rabbit eating a little bit of grass in its jar, it's a sentient organism having feelings. And it can have bad feelings and good feelings, and we can understand that. And the universe can't. We can. The universe can't. Nature can't. Only the vessels that have the stored information can conceptualize and understand the relationship between a pen and your butthole. Only a brain can do that.
All right. Next question is, pregnant women who commit suicide, what would be your thoughts on this?
Yeah, make more of them if you can. Is there a pill I can, sneak into the water? I don't mean to laugh, but look, pregnancy is irrelevant in this conversation. It's like saying people carrying pigs. Should people carrying pigs be allowed to drown themselves, let's say? I don't think you would find any objection to people with pigs drowning themselves, because you don't give a shit about pigs and cows or any other animal. Now, you're going to tell me that human fetuses are sacred organisms, and I should think that a pregnant woman somehow has some obligation to the undeveloped organism, parasite growing inside of her, that we know that fetus doesn't have any material properties. If I was to make a list of its properties, there aren't any that have been proven by any science or can be observed by anybody or anything to indicate that the human fetus has any properties the grown-up pig doesn't have. Plus the pig has a whole bunch more that the fetus doesn't have. A whole bunch more good properties the fetus doesn't have. So why don't you just ask me that? Should people who want to commit suicide be allowed to take a pig with them? A ham sandwich with them. Should they be allowed to eat a ham sandwich before they kill themselves? That's how meaningless your question is as a rational one. Unless you're expecting me to think there's some reason to believe fetuses have special powers, at which there is no evidence they have. They're the creepiest of the most unfunctional of all mammalian underdeveloped. They have less capacity, not more capacity.
If you were to see a pregnant woman that was going to commit suicide, would you give a shit? Would you try?
Well, you did this to Paul's ego, I think, and or the other guy, Charleston 76. Why can't I think of his name? That's so funny. Come on, brain. Christopher 7. you always want to make sure people are making the right decision when they're doing something important. Now, I mean, philosophically, I have to admit, emotionally, I might react just because emotionally, you're sort of just uncomfortable because the person's going to be hurt. But if you understand that, well, they're going to be hurt no matter how they kill themselves. So, I mean, it kind of depends on how they're going to kill themselves, I guess. If they're going to jump into 145-degree water, oh yeah, I'll probably stop them, but it's going to take a while for that to do the job. So it just kind of depends, I guess, on how they're going to die, because I would suggest another method if they're choosing a bad one. And emotionally, like I said, you're sort of just, it's hard to watch human beings in trouble, and you have to sort of be in trouble. But life is troubling, so it's perfectly understandable that somebody finds it unsufferable. They just can't suffer it anymore. So what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to tell them to suffer it some more? Suffer for nothing? We know that, all of this bullshit doesn't mean anything. They all die. And some of them die so badly. I mean, did you see, like, Farrah Fawcett, towards the end? I mean, it's sad, and it's painful, life. And why do you think I would want to impose more pain on somebody? Why do you think I wouldn't respect their pain and say, endure more of it, eat some more pain? For what? So they can watch Brett Keane videos? Is that all you think about? If they're dead, they can't watch my videos? They can't subscribe? What is it that you want from these people? Sincere question. What is your expectation? They should endure more suffering. Or they should what? Have their brain electrocuted out of their head? Or take some drug so they can't feel anymore? Or think? What the fuck do you want?
Try to stop her. Do you believe that parents are actually immoral for creating life?
Yes, I think you know the answer. It's not immoral. I believe they are doing very bad value math. They're not appreciating what they're doing. They're not conscious of what they're doing. They're ill-equipped to take care of it when it goes wrong, as you're an example of. You have no powers to protect your daughter, and you know it. You're just stuck with it as a fact. And it's got to, I don't want to get personal, but I mean that inability to fix it has got to bug the fuck out of you. And that's the game you people are playing. You're playing with fire, things are going to get burned, and you keep pretending it's okay. And it's not. It's one hell of a fucking thing to do. To fucking force something to live a life that might be horrible. That's one hell of an arrogant fucking thing to do.
I've heard you say yes in the past, but I understand that you're a person. Your ideas and thoughts may have changed since then.
Well, whatever. Why would they change? Because you convince me that donuts make it all worthwhile? That I can go eat a big piece of fucking fancy British cheese or something and that makes it okay that kids have cancer? Fuck you. This is fucking irrational nonsense. Because you are a glutton for punishment, because you are a sadistic lunatic who just wants it to, just keep piling it on. Okay, when you start getting the bad medical reports, Brett, and the ones that really mean something, do you think you're going to have a good time? Well, you're not. This is a real game we're playing with real fucking pain, with real fucking torture. And for you arrogant assholes to think you're the master of this game is just so obnoxiously arrogant, especially considering that you haven't really thought about it at all. That when you had kids, you weren't thinking about anything but your own ego, your own, oh, I'm going to play with the little kitties, and they're going to be like having puppies, and oh, the puppies are so cute. And that's all. You weren't thinking about the fact that your kid might be disabled, that your kid might, okay, have a very long and protracted and horrible death, that they might live a disabled life. You weren't thinking about any of that, fucker. So don't ask your question like you are on the top of the fucking ethical pile, jackass. You're on the bottom of the ethical pile, fuckface. You have no reason to look down on my philosophy, motherfucker. I'm not the one being an arrogant imbecile. And you go ahead and prove me wrong. Prove to me, demonstrate to me you had some knowledge when you had children of what you were taking fucking responsibility for. Go ahead and explain to me how you thought about it ahead of time and you knew if you had a disabled kid it would be all right. I have the authority. I have the power to control. Her pain will be worth it. Go ahead and prove that to me, fuckhead. And then you can stand above me and point your finger down at me and say, I'm the one with debaucherous ethics. You are the one who is the motherfucking Hitler here, asshole. You're the unthinking, bigoted, self-interested fuck who doesn't give a rat's fucking ass about the welfare of others, the people you enslave to your fucking donut eating, you cunt.
Can't be bothered to watch every one of your thousands.
I can't be bothered to understand a philosophy. Well, there's a movie called The Ethelist. Go watch it. This isn't that complicated. It's a half fucking hour. And you might see yourself in there in a few fucking places, douchebag. And you might have a moment of pause, okay, when you consider the victims, fuckface.
The videos.
Classy, really classy. Again, you're going to talk about how other people lack something called character or integrity or thoughtfulness or respect for something, and then you belch in somebody's face. You fucking pig!
My next question is, do you believe that atheism benefits society by definition?
I think rationality, by definition, is better than irrationality. That's right. 99 times out of 100, it's better to go with rational. That's right. Irrational, based on no evidence, based on faith, this idiotic concept of belief without reason or evidence. Yeah, that's really fucking stupid and is likely to create a stupiverse full of stupidity and stuporosity and stupid fucking waste.
What contribution does lacking a belief in deities actually have to society?
Yeah, lacking, that's like saying, what does lacking a belief in gremlins, Sasquatch, the man in the moon, I could go on, and you're saying, what's the damage done? It's as simple as the damage done by not understanding the forest you're navigating. If you can't see the trees, then you're going to bang into them. If you think there's fake trees where there's no trees, then you're not going to get to the drinking water, or you're not going to get to the best apple trees, or whatever. It's going to be very destructive to your existence if you believe in boogeyman's and Sasquatches and all sort of other kind of bullshit in the environment that don't really exist. That's right, you're going to be burdened. If you go into the forest with your bear gun, okay, and the only thing in the forest is monkeys or something, then you're wasting your fucking effort. You're not going to be able to walk as far in the desert if you're carrying a whole bunch. I got a bear gun and tiger guns, and so this is like my demon gun and my Sasquatch gun and my reptilian gun. Yeah, and so you're going to be burdened by your stupidity, by being wrongly equipped to deal with the reality. Okay, so yes, it's important if you want to navigate reality in some sort of way that would be productive and successful, you probably got to understand it accurately. Alright, we're about halfway, so I think we'll call this a video, just in case the camera decides to fail or something. And yeah, I'm a little pissed off, so it'd be good to have a little quiet time. So sick of these obnoxious people who think they, they have some right. That, they're in some sort of honorable position, where they can make accusations at me. Amazing.